welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, again, we are keeping an eye on Maharashtra. There's a new government in place, or rather, a new chief minister in place. We still have to see how this falls out in terms of, the anti-disqualification, whether he's allowed to keep his party or he has to form a new party, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, Eknath Shinde is in the chief minister's chair. The Shiv Sena, by whichever name, gets the full 5-year term. BJP is sitting in, is supporting him. In fact, there was a very interesting thing about how Fadnavis wanted to be chief minister. Last minute, he was brought down and made to be deputy chief minister. What happened in those 2-3 hours, really, where he said, I will sit outside, I will not be part of the government. Then suddenly it was announced not by Fadnavis, but actually by Amit Shah, that Fadnavis aayenge aur sarkar mein aur banenge deputy chief minister. So was it a takedown of Fadnavis, or is there a larger game at play? And also the Sena. Can the Sena unite again at some point? Because remember the 3 factions. There's Uddhav, there's also Eknath Shinde, and let's not forget Raj Thackeray. Will Raj Thackeray now make his move? So interesting developments in Maharashtra. And also I'm not totally convinced about the role Sharad Pawar played in all this. He had the home ministry under him. How could he have not known that about a whole bunch of cavalcade of 27 plus MLAs are leaving Maharashtra to go to Surat? Why did he let that happen? Is it because he actually wants to see the Sena finished? Congress is not really a player in Maharashtra. And then Sharad Pawar's NCP emerges as this other party apart from the BJP. So was there a deeper game plan over here? Joining me to discuss all this is Radhika Ramaseshan. She's political commentator, columnist, and also someone who keeps a very close eye on what's happening politically. We have Dilip Cherian. He's a commentator, columnist, and he's also someone who's a familiar face on Roundtable. Amitabh Tiwari, Maharashtra-based. He's also a political analyst. Radhika, what is the deep game over here? Let's talk about first the BJP's game, then we'll talk about the other parties.
Okay, now regarding the BJP was restless ever since the NCP and Uddhav, the Uddhav part of the Sena had outfoxed them shortly after Devendra Fadnavis was sworn in as the chief minister. I mean, this is a very premier state as far as the BJP is concerned, and the financial capital. And there is almost a sense of proprietorship that the BJP has over Maharashtra. And secondly, I think the BMC polls are coming, the BMC Thane Kalyan polls. So it's very important for the BJP to be in the saddle before these polls take place, so that it can manipulate with the dynamics, so to speak. BJP could well win on its own, but it's not so easy because Sena is still a factor. So for the thirdly, the BJP knows that it can only peak up to a point in Maharashtra. It's exactly like Karnataka. I always feel that the BJP can go this far and no further in Karnataka. Same in Maharashtra. They won 122 seats in 2014, and then in the last election, I think it was 106, and they lost a large number of seats in Vidarbha, which incidentally is Nitin Gadkari and Devendra Fadnavis's so-called putative stronghold. They lost seats in Western Maharashtra. So the BJP needs an ally. It knew that under Uddhav Thackeray, the Sena is not going to come. I mean, Uddhav broke away simply because the BJP was not ready to make him the chief minister. So then it targeted the disgruntled lot. It targeted an ambitious person like Eknath Shinde, because it's very important for the BJP to make inroads in the rural areas. And why? Because the cooperatives, the cooperatives are a massive source of patronage, and mostly they are with Sharad Pawar. Sharad Pawar can leverage his influence in the rural areas, especially in the sugar belt. So it's important for these reasons. It was important for the BJP to be in the saddle in Maharashtra. It probably sees Sharad Pawar as its biggest political adversary, despite the huge setback that Pawar has suffered. I mean, you alluded to it in your opening remarks. I think Sharad Pawar, it was not really part of any larger game. He was just outmaneuvered this time, despite holding the home ministry, which was anyway in a mess. First you had Anil Deshmukh, then he was out, and then even he didn't rise to the task. So I think it is for these reasons that the BJP would want to be in the saddle in Maharashtra.
We're also joined by Tehseen Poonawalla, someone who's a Congress sympathizer, supporter, and also based in Maharashtra. So we'll take his view in a bit. But Dilip, first, your point on the games that are happening. How do you see? We know what's happened on the surface. A government is toppled, but what is the larger ramifications of that?
I think the big point was to show Sharad Pawar his place, which was very critical, especially after the last time when he had gone down to the wire to discuss which BJP Karyakarta would be in charge of various districts. It had gone down to that when he took that flight at 3 a.m. in the morning and changed his mind. So I think that there's no doubt that the BJP was actually stung by that, and they.
Which flight is this? 3 a.m. in the morning?
During the time when Ajit Pawar had gone to Mumbai.
When he met the PM.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So I'm saying that these things are not events that the leadership in the BJP forgive or forget. They relentlessly pursue this. Secondly, I think the fact is that whatever may be the reason, Uddhav Thackeray wasn't doing the 9 a.m. briefing with the police commissioner. You can't leave everything to your home minister to figure out what's going on with your CID. You need a hands-on CEO of any operation like this. And Maharashtra needs to be run like a corporate entity. I think, whether it was COVID or whether it was surgery, Uddhav Thackeray provided a brilliant opportunity by cutting himself away from his MLAs for a significant period of time. And the BJP is a party which does not believe in wasting either an opportunity or a need to extract revenge. So I think if you look at both situations, the logical conclusion was topple Uddhav at the first possible chance, and that happened with almost a kind of like a war game. They managed to sew it all up and deliver the goods at the end of the day.
Fair enough. Amitabh, future mein what do you see happening? Do you see the Sena coming together? I spoke about Raj Thackeray, Uddhav, and of course Eknath Shinde now. Is there any possibility of maybe Raj Thackeray taking over Uddhav and taking over the Sena and bringing Eknath Shinde back?
See, somehow I have been astonished by the statements of the spokesperson of the Shinde faction, which is Karsekar. He has been very humble and he, till date, has not targeted Uddhav Thackeray. The faction has always said that they have a lot of respect for Uddhav. So, is there going to be some sort of a deal wherein Uddhav faction and the Shinde faction kiss and make up? We don't know. However, that may not be allowed by BJP because that is not in the interest of BJP if the Sena stays together, and also NCP for that matter. Dilipji mentioned a very important point about the police commissioner and the intelligence briefing, and we are all discussing how Uddhav could not even know that a bus load full of MLAs are going from one place to another. So, having worked with a few chief ministers, I can say that if you look at their schedule, ADG intelligence meeting happens with the CM on a daily basis. And in that meeting, nobody else sits apart from ADG intelligence and the chief minister. It's a very secret meeting which happens between all CMs across the state and the intelligence officers. So if he was not doing that, then perhaps it was his weakness or his shortcoming in that sense. While a lot has been spoken about NCP, I feel that NCP is itself going through a lot of rumblings within. And it could even see an implosion like Shiv Sena has faced. Mind you, Ajit Dada has his own mind. Then you have made another power center in Jayant Patil, who is the state chief. And then you have Sharad Pawar and his daughter Supriya Sule. After Sharad Pawar retires, who will gain control of NCP? That is the big question mark. That is why even Sharad Pawar, for some time, I would say, has been trying to align with the BJP or has been softer on BJP so that he is able to place Supriya Sule in the center in the union cabinet and let Ajit take control of the state machinery so that there is some sort of an equal division within the NCP. But that has not happened. When we are saying that, how did Sharad Pawar did not know about this movement? Maybe Ajit Pawar did, because Ajit Pawar in his initial statements did not blame BJP. He said BJP is not responsible for it, in fact. So there is something going on within the NCP, and I don't see NCP also benefiting a lot from this, that they will now become the second largest party after finishing of Sena, etc. Because Congress, I still believe, will be the traditional rival in the state. In NCP, everything is dependent upon Pawar. What happens when Pawar retires? That is the big question. And we all have to see towards that also. If Shinde takes control of the Sena faction, ultimately we are seeing a Goa model here where BJP gained from being a few MLAs to being the single largest party or in government, because it absorbed so many MLAs from Congress, MGP, NCP, etc. So ultimately, these MLAs will be subsumed or absorbed in the BJP. So BJP gains from 106 to 150, 160, and then you have NCP and Congress. NCP gaining, I don't know whether it can still hold on to the gains after Sharad Pawar.
Interesting points. And Tehsim, let's take a look at the Congress. Welcome to the show. Can the Congress use this crisis into an opportunity? And if so, who will you promote? Who will the party promote? Ashok Chavan. They have faces. There's no new face that's being groomed really.
Namaskar, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah. Namaskar, thank you for having me on the show, and namaskar to all my worthy fellow panelists. Let me divide this in three parts that I can speak about them individually. A, as all of you all know, and you all are much senior than me, that this is not the first split the Shiv Sena has had. So it's had the Chhagan Bhujbal split, it's had the Narayan Rane split, it's had the Raj Thackeray split. So splits have happened in the Shiv Sena. But yes, the force and the magnitude with which this split happened, definitely there's a lot more that says about how incompetent the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi government was. I'm not going to make personal comments about the Honorable Chief Minister, but here's a government, and I'll tell you, when they had one of the IPS officers as intelligence, I had personally told the Home Minister, you cannot have this person as your intelligence. And later on, there was a controversy around that particular IPS officer, and they removed, and the matter went big. And I personally told the then Home Minister about it. I told everybody that matters in the government about that particular officer. So you had wrong people. The police in Maharashtra, for your viewers to understand, is only loyal to the NCP and the BJP. It is not loyal to the Shiv Sena and the Congress. Let's be very clear on this. Point number two, that brings me to what Amitabh said, and I'll come to that. What I find is very interesting, the legal battle that's going to happen 11 July onwards. So you see the Shiv Sena has split, but the split is only a legislative party split. It's not the complete Shiv Sena that's split. Not one corporator has gone with the Eknath Shinde faction. The other Karyakartas still seem to be with the Uddhav Thackeray faction. So yes, on the floor of the Legislative Assembly, there is a split. But even in the MLC, the Legislative Council, majority of the MLCs still are hanging around with are still with the Uddhav Thackeray faction. So how does the Supreme Court then interpret this split? Interestingly, whose whip applies? And Amitabh and me have been on Twitter talking about this. Will it be the whip of Sunil Prabhu, the Uddhav Thackeray faction, or will it be the whip of the Eknath Shinde faction? That matter, again, 11 July, it will come up, which whip applies. The Eknath Shinde faction will obviously try and elect their own speaker. So even if they've defied the whip, the new speaker will not suspend them. And that brings me to the fundamental question coming to Congress. Look, the speaker's post was the Congress's post. So when Nana resigned, again, the speaker was decided, almost decided, it was decided who's going to be the new speaker from Congress. There's somebody who was excellent, who would take on who would take on politically the NCP, because I personally believe the NCP is a much, 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 much bigger threat to the Congress than the BJP. And I'm saying those many times with absolute responsibility, particularly Ajit Pawar, particularly in Western Maharashtra. So everything was decided. Last minute, they did not manage to elect the speaker. And again, I would keep lamenting that the minute Anil Deshmukh was removed as Home Minister, I know they're not the same things. Within a couple of hours, Dilip Valse Patil was Home Minister. The Congress for a year could not get its speaker done. So there was those maneuverings being done. So again, what whip will apply will be a very interesting legal battle. Does the split only on the Legislative Council give legitimacy to a party? If that is not upheld by the Supreme Court, that split, Eknath Shinde will have no option but to merge into the BJP as per the 10th schedule. So very interesting constitutional battles. Now coming to the Congress, like I said, the Congress could not elect its own speaker over a year. I personally believe, I've written about this, the biggest loss in this Mahagadbad is of the Congress party, not the Shiv Sena, not the BJP and the NCP will gain. The Congress is the biggest loser. I mean,
I'm going to ask you to hold on to that thought because we need to take a break and we'll come back. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are here discussing the larger message from Maharashtra. And Radhika, we discussed what is happening with the BJP, or rather a little bit more about the BJP is what I wanted to know from you. What is the plan in putting Devendra Fadnavis on ice?
Okay.
What is the larger gain?
Yeah, on ice, I quite like that. There are a number of reasons, Priya. People have, gone into the whole Laddu optics, that he had presumed that he was going to become the chief minister and was already accepting congratulations, and that didn't go well with the high command. However, I don't think that may be a teeny weeny factor. I don't know, but in the present regime, Amit Shah and Modi, they go into hard electoral calculations, which will eventually benefit, or at least they hope will benefit them on the ground. The BJP lacks a pan-Maharashtra leader. There is no doubt that Mr. Fadnavis has not emerged, though he ran a government for 5 years. I mean, the BJP lost with his own home turf. He was not able to go he was not able to disseminate his appeal in the Konkan region, where the BJP was eventually dependent on Narayan Rane, Western Maharashtra, Marathwada, and the other regions. So the BJP lacks a leader. And for the BJP and Amit Shah and Modi, in their wisdom, they have decided to play the Maratha card. Though the Shiv Sena began as a party of the OBCs, Shinde is a Maratha leader, and the BJP hopes to use Shinde's strength, both in Thane as well as the Satara regions, to its advantage, and maybe extend his appeal beyond these two things. So I think that is a very hard calculation that the BJP has factored in when it reached out to Eknath Shinde and his rebels. Then, thirdly, the BJP lacks an organization, like it or not. BJP's organizational prowess is celebrated everywhere else. But in my experience of covering elections in Maharashtra, I did not find the BJP's organization particularly strong, except maybe in the Vidarbha region, where it traditionally had a presence, and Nitin Gadkari had helped build a network. Konkan, limited way due to Narayan Rane. Now, Eknath Shinde is supposed to be a strong organizational hand. He was an asset to the Sena to that extent. So I think the BJP hopes to also use the Sena's or the Eknath Shinde factions organizational network to its advantage. And thirdly, and most important, the Eknath Shinde is wedded to the Hindutva ideology, so he says, so he proclaims in every possible forum. he makes a distinction between himself and Uddhav Thackeray. His whole line is that Uddhav Thackeray has compromised the Sena's legacy, the Sena's ideals. So he's talking about Hindutva. The BJP, I mean, while other
I want to cut
factors,
you short because I want to give everybody a little time. We're totally in the last things. But the point that Radhika made that, Eknath's in Hindutva thing, but supposing the BJP doesn't, supposing he has to merge with the BJP, Dilip, then he becomes the BJP chief minister, an outsider who's merged with the BJP to become chief minister. How does that play out in the BJP plan of things?
For the BJP, that, to my mind, my assessment is that that is better than allowing him to attempt to take over the entire Sena. Because why would the BJP want to nurse yet another leader in Maharashtra who can at any stage become a threat? That's the question that they would be asking. So from the point of view of giving him the support, the manpower and the money power to ensure that he becomes the undisputed leader of the Sena is not, to my mind, and I'm just doing a game theory kind of assessment of it, is not to the advantage of the BJP. And certainly the fact that Fadnavis isn't the kind of leader who has the charisma is a factor. And I think the BJP likes to keep the search on, as it were, in active mode. So don't think that Shinde is going to be the BJP's choice for leader, because you have to come up by a different school to be acceptable as the top leader in a state for the BJP by choice as opposed to by chance.
Okay, good point. As Hemanta Biswa Sarma may agree with you, Dilip, on that. But Amitabh, your take on how do you see this BJP Eknath Shinde equation progressing? Not legally, but in terms of chemistry.
No, I think what Eknath Shinde, I think, did here is that he already had an offer of chief ministership from the MBA. So as a corporate, BJP had to match that offer. I do not understand this logic that for your political objective of finishing off the Sena, you are giving chief ministership to a person who has half or less than half of the MLAs you have. Correct. And for a very important economic state like Maharashtra. So there is something, of course, behind this which is not yet out in the public domain. You want to cut down to size Fadnavis, or perhaps you also feel that this government will not last. Because by making Shinde the CM, you have sown the first seeds of discord within these 40 odd MLAs. Now they would say, boss, you've got a deal for yourself. You've become the chief minister. What about us? And this is a very thin majority now. 20 MLAs move from here to there. Things will change. So ultimately, I agree with Dilipji in the sense that whether Shinde gets control of the Sena, original Sena or not, ultimately BJP would want to absorb him into the BJP. So if he is successful at claiming the symbol and everything, well and fine. Even if he's not, BJP believes that a larger faction at least is subsumed, so that a pan-state leader, which it does not have today, it at least has leader in a Western Maharashtra, let's say, or Mumbai, Thane, and then have some 4 or 5 leaders across the state, and then try it out in the next Lok Sabha and Assembly elections.
Tesim, on for you, apart from the BJP, the Congress, where do you see it? The question that I asked you earlier, can they turn this crisis into an opportunity? You seem to think so.
The Congress still has the most amount of goodwill in Maharashtra. The Congress was to be born in my city of Pune. Unfortunately, with the plague, it was born in Mumbai. Top leaders of the Congress have come from Maharashtra, including Tilak Agarkar, the founding member, Dadabhai Naorozji. And then you, of course, had Gandhiji's historic connection with Pune, Mumbai, Nehruji, Indiraji, Rajivji. So the Congress needs to realize that it is a very strong organization in Maharashtra. Stop sending entertainers from other states to Maharashtra for the Rajya Sabha. It's caused a lot of heartburn. A lot of Congress MLAs were very upset with the tie-up in the NBA. take on Ajit Pawar very, very strongly. The only Congress leaders, two leaders who took on Ajit Pawar very strongly and kept him in his place was one, Vilas Rao Deshmukh, who unfortunately is no longer amongst us. Sorry, three leaders: Ashok Chavan, who got framed in the Adarsh Gotala, so-called Adarsh Gotala, nothing came out of it, and Mr. Suresh Kalmadi, who's now retired. The three of them kept Ajit Pawar in his place. Nobody else they all seem to not keep him in his place, give more power to mass leaders. And I think the Congress can still emerge as the principal opposition. One advice to the Congress that I've given earlier on your show and I'm going to give: come to power on your own, but don't come to power only to keep the BJP out. It's proved disastrous in Karnataka with the Deve Gowda faction. They went to Rajya Sabha, didn't back your second candidate, they keep ditching you. It's proved disastrous in Maharashtra. Please, it doesn't matter if the BJP comes to power, you will come back to power. But the minute you ally with regional parties like parasites suck off the Congress. The BJP grows at the expense of the regional parties. The Congress reduces at the expense of the regional parties. Understand this fundamental difference and make your organization strong. And you cannot make your organization strong by getting outsiders. Make your organization strong by backing your people.
Very well said. Totally agree with you on that. But thank you all for this conversation. I'm sure Maharashtra is a political theater we're going to keep watching in the days to come. But for now, that is all. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.